What if the trash you walk past every day could become the most beautiful part of your garden? Welcome to Modhouse DIY, where today we explore DIY trash garden ideas that turn discarded items into borders, fences, and backyard accents you'll actually love. This video is organized with timestamps, so you can jump straight to the ideas you need. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments. I read every single one. Maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content is a real story, and a real family. This isn't just a video, it's a piece of my heart. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it truly matters. When you hit that subscribe button, you're not just helping a creator grow. You're helping a dream stay alive. You're giving a small family hope, one click at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. In the heart of a tiny garden, where the grass grows soft beneath your feet and the flowers spill their colors as if the earth itself were painting, a line of rainbow-painted tires comes alive. Once discarded, forgotten in some corner of junk, they now stand proudly, reshaped into characters with bright faces and playful charm. Their rounded bodies, brushed in vivid strokes of red, blue, green, and yellow, echo the carefree spirit of childhood, an invitation to laugh, to pause, to let the ordinary become magical. The tires rest along the border, not as barriers but as companions to the blooms. Around them, marigolds flare with golden fire, asters weave their delicate stars, and chrysanthemums, plump and generous, bow gently in the breeze. Each flower adds a voice to the garden's chorus, while the painted tires echo back with a silent smile. Together, they turn a narrow yard into something wider than space itself, a place where imagination grows taller than fences. At dusk, when the light softens and the shadows stretch across the patio stones, the rainbow characters seem almost to breathe. Their colors catch the fading glow, glowing softly against the rustic fence. Children lean against them, inventing stories about tire dragons and flower kingdoms, while adults find themselves drawn into the nostalgia of days spent crafting rather than consuming. It is a scene both whimsical and grounding, where the recycled becomes radiant. What was once trash has been reborn, not hidden or disguised, but celebrated for what it can become with a little care and vision. And in this transformation lies the real beauty of the tiny garden, the promise that even the smallest corner, when touched with color and imagination, can bloom into something unforgettable. In a quiet corner of the farmhouse garden, where the wind leans gently against the wooden fence and the air smells faintly of hay and autumn blooms, a set of rustic totems rises. They are not carved from stone or shaped from timber, but from something once dismissed as junk, old tires, stacked one upon another. Yet in their rebirth, they carry a kind of humble dignity, their forms softened by the brush of color and the embrace of flowers. Each tire has been painted in weathered shades of cream, sage, and faded rose, tones that echo the worn doors of country barns and the pale curtains of cottage kitchens. When the afternoon light falls upon them, the totems seem to tell their own story, a reminder that the farmhouse aesthetic has always been less about polish and more about character. Around their bases, marigolds spill like drops of sun, asters shine with their star-like grace, and sedum stretches upward in rosy clusters. Together, the blooms climb and frame the totems, softening their shape, letting nature finish what the brush began. Visitors pause when they see them. Some tilt their heads, unsure if they are art or garden structure. Others smile knowingly, as if these totems whisper of thrift, of hands that refuse to waste, of beauty found in resilience. And as evening approaches, when the last light catches on their painted rings, the tires seem less like remnants of roads traveled and more like guardians of the garden, rooted, enduring, standing watch among the flowers. There is a comfort in their presence, the way they blend both sturdiness and whimsy, the way they remind us that the heart of a farmhouse garden lies not in perfect symmetry but in soulful reinvention. In their quiet stillness, the rustic tire totems invite you to linger, to breathe, to see how even the smallest, simplest forms can anchor a space in warmth. Corners of a white gazebo, where shadows fall gently across the grass and flowers bloom in quiet abundance, a pair of swans rests. They are not born of water nor carved from marble, but shaped from what was once overlooked, old tires, cut and curved into elegant forms, their surfaces painted a clean, luminous white. In their stillness, they seem to glide, as if the breeze itself were the lake they long for. Around their feet, chrysanthemums cluster like golden lanterns, asters scatter their stars, and marigolds lift their heads toward the fading sun. The swans do not move, yet the garden moves for them. Every petal and leaf frames their presence, every color deepens their calm. There is something almost sacred in their posture, the way their arched necks curve as though listening to the whispers of the wind. Children pass by and pause, their laughter quieting for a moment. They see not tires, but guardians of a storybook garden, creatures spun from imagination and care. Adults smile too, some with nostalgia, remembering how beauty can be coaxed from even the simplest of things. In this small act of transformation lies a truth: the garden is not only a place for growth but for reinvention. As dusk spreads its gentle veil, the painted swans glow against the twilight, their white forms catching the last trace of light. They seem to belong entirely, as though they had always been waiting at the gazebo's edge, companions to the flowers, witnesses to the passing seasons. It is a reminder that elegance is not measured in wealth or rarity but in the way we choose to see the ordinary. Here, in this modest yard, tires have become swans, trash has become timeless, and a corner of the garden has been transformed into a stage for beauty. At the edge of the garden path, where marigolds glow like little suns and the air hums with the sound of bees, a row of frogs sits patiently. They are not living creatures but playful guardians, recycled tires, painted a lively green, reshaped into round bodies and wide grins. Their painted eyes, bright and curious, seem to follow the wanderer who steps into the yard, as if ready to leap into laughter rather than water. The marigolds around them burn with golden light, their dense blooms catching the warmth of afternoon sun. Each frog, perched among these fiery borders, looks as though it has found its throne. The bright petals contrast with the glossy green, turning the entire scene into a tapestry of color and cheer. Asters add a soft touch nearby, their violet hues balancing the gold, while chrysanthemums nod quietly in the breeze. Visitors often pause here, drawn not just by the flowers but by the unexpected charm of these tire frogs. Children giggle at their big round eyes and invent tales of a secret frog kingdom. Adults, too, cannot help but smile, reminded of the creativity that turns what is discarded into something delightful. The frogs may never croak, but they sing silently of resourcefulness, of joy, of the beauty in small reinventions. As twilight approaches, the marigolds darken into a deeper orange, their glow still circling the frogs like halos. The rustic fence casts long shadows, and the frogs seem to settle into their posts as watchful companions of the garden. They belong not only to the earth but to imagination, sitting proudly where trash has been painted into treasure. In this tiny corner, the balance of whimsy and bloom makes the space feel larger than it is. The frogs, with their playful faces, remind anyone who looks that gardens need not be serious to be beautiful, they need only to be loved, tended, and sprinkled with a bit of humor. And so, the marigold border does not merely frame the path, it crowns the frogs with sunlight, granting them a place in the heart of the garden. Along the garden fence, where climbing vines twist their way upward and the blooms press gently against the wood, a small parliament of owls keeps watch. They do not ruffle their wings or call into the night, but their eyes, round, bright, and whimsical, seem alive with curiosity. Each owl has been shaped from discarded tires, cut and painted into feathered forms, their surfaces brushed with warm earthy tones and rustic patterns. They perch proudly on the posts, companions to the marigolds blazing below. The golden flowers rise like lanterns at their feet, their color mirrored in the painted beaks of the owls. Asters spread their delicate stars nearby, while chrysanthemums anchor the scene with a richness of tone. Together, flowers and owls create a border that feels both playful and timeless, a fence line transformed into a stage of character. The garden seems to lean into their presence. In the quiet of early evening, when shadows lengthen and the air carries the scent of earth, the owls take on a gentle gravitas. Children see them as magical guardians, protectors of secret fairy tales whispered among the flower beds. Adults smile at their charm, the way something so ordinary as a tire has become a creature of story and spirit. And yet, there is a softness to them. Their painted feathers are not crisp but textured, as though time itself brushed across their wings. This rustic imperfection gives them soul, grounding them in the farmhouse spirit of making do and making beautiful. They belong here, among the wood and the blooms, reminding anyone who lingers that imagination is the true seed of a garden. As dusk turns the sky to violet, the owls watch silently, their round eyes catching the last sliver of light. They do not hoot, they do not stir, but their presence is felt, a whimsical company keeping the fence from being merely a boundary. Here, the garden feels safer, warmer, and somehow more alive, as if these quiet sentinels of recycled grace breathe their own quiet magic into the night. On the edge of a small patio, where potted flowers spill over their rims and the air hums with the gentle rhythm of summer, a cluster of mushroom stools invites you to pause. They are not true mushrooms, of course, but whimsical creations born from old tires, painted in vivid reds and dotted with cheerful whites. Their rounded forms brighten the patio floor, looking as though they had sprung up overnight from some fairy tale soil. Around them, marigolds blaze in their golden hues, asters scatter purple sparks across the garden's palette, and sedum leans into autumn with a quiet blush. The stools stand among these blooms like characters from a woodland dream, their playful presence turning the patio into a place where imagination and comfort meet. Children delight in them, clambering onto the painted caps, pretending they've entered a land of giants. Adults, too, find themselves drawn to sit, to rest, to sip a cup of tea while the flowers nod in the breeze. Each stool bears the rustic charm of imperfection. The brushstrokes show faintly, the colors softened by sun and time, and yet that is precisely their appeal. They carry the farmhouse spirit, practical, humble, and creative, transformed into something that feels both useful and enchanting. Set beneath a pergola or beside a shabby chic fence, they bring character to a space that might otherwise feel empty. As twilight drapes itself across the yard, the mushroom stools glow faintly under the fading light. They seem almost alive, companions to the flowers, waiting quietly for someone to return with a story, a laugh, or simply a moment to breathe. What makes them magical is not just their form, but their origin. From tires once destined for the landfill, they have become seats for gatherings, accents for patios, and symbols of joy. They remind us that gardens are not only about plants but about the spirit we bring to them, the choice to see beyond the ordinary, to play, to make beauty from what is forgotten. And so, in this little patio, the mushroom stools root themselves not in soil, but in imagination, where they bloom just as brightly as the flowers around them. Nestled between chrysanthemums heavy with bloom and marigolds glowing like embers, a family of hedgehogs rests quietly. They are not creatures of flesh and quill but of paint and imagination, recycled tires reshaped into round bodies, their surfaces brushed in warm browns and soft earthy tones. Their painted eyes glimmer with cheer, their little smiles forever frozen in welcome. Around them, the garden sings with autumn. Chrysanthemums, full and fiery, crowd the borders, their colors deepening into burgundy and gold. Sedum, autumn joy, rises in clusters, catching the light of the late sun, while asters scatter gentle stars in violet and white. Among this tapestry of bloom, the hedgehogs seem perfectly at home, as if they had burrowed from the soil itself to watch over the season's fading warmth. Children are drawn first, laughing at their spiky painted backs, reaching out as though the hedgehogs might scurry away. Adults linger too, smiling at the playfulness of it all, the way something so simple, a tire once abandoned, can hold such charm when imagination intervenes. In their stillness, the hedgehogs remind us that beauty often lies in the smallest gestures, a curve cut carefully, a brush dipped in the right shade, a corner of the garden given to whimsy. As evening comes, the chrysanthemums glow deeper, their petals catching the low sun. The hedgehogs seem to huddle closer in the fading light, guardians of a border that feels alive with both bloom and character. The rustic fence behind them casts long shadows, turning the scene into something both homely and enchanted. There is comfort here, in the way the flowers bend gently toward their painted companions, in the way the hedgehogs soften the line between garden and play. They are not grand sculptures nor costly decor, but they carry the heart of a garden made with care, where even the discarded has its place, where joy is found in transformation, where a tiny yard can feel infinite with imagination. And so, these hedgehogs stay, season after season, smiling from their quiet corner, turning what was once junk into a story of belonging and delight. In the quiet bend of a tiny garden, where sedum blushes with the tender pink of autumn and marigolds stand in golden rows, a cluster of snails rests. They are not creatures of dew and soil, but whimsical companions made from old tires, painted in earthy browns, soft creams, and gentle greens. Their shells curve in broad spirals, each brush stroke capturing the rhythm of nature's slow and steady hand. They sit low among the flowers, patient and unhurried. Sedum, autumn joy, rises around them like a chorus, its clustered blooms leaning toward the light. Asters sprinkle violet tones nearby, while chrysanthemums anchor the scene with their full-bodied hues. Together, the snails and the flowers weave a border that feels both playful and deeply grounded, a reminder that gardens are at their best when whimsy walks hand in hand with bloom. Children pause at the sight, bending down to trace the spiral shells with their fingers. In their eyes, the snails are storytellers, whispering tales of slow journeys and hidden fairy kingdoms. Adults see something else, the quiet brilliance of transformation, the way cast-off rubber can become a sculpture that feels at once rustic and alive. The snails hold both laughter and thought, their presence softening the space with an unexpected charm. As the evening light deepens, the shells catch the glow, their painted spirals turning golden under the low sun. The rustic fence behind them casts gentle shadows, while the air carries the scent of chrysanthemums and damp earth. The snails seem to settle even more firmly into place, not as intruders but as residents of the garden, as natural here as the blooms themselves. There is a kind of wisdom in their stillness. They remind us that gardens are not meant to be hurried, that beauty often unfolds slowly, patiently, with time. And in their quiet way, the tire snails embody that lesson, recycled, remade, and rooted in the heart of a garden that values not just what grows, but what can be reimagined. Across the green sweep of a backyard lawn, where flowers bend softly toward the sun and the wooden fence leans with time, a flock of sheep grazes silently. They are not real creatures, yet they carry the charm of a meadow. Formed from recycled tires, painted in soft whites and deep blacks, they stand as whimsical accents, their round bodies and gentle faces brimming with friendliness. Marigolds scatter bursts of yellow at their feet, asters stretch their starry petals nearby, and sedum, autumn joy, rises in warm clusters tinged with pink. The sheep nestle into this pastoral palette with ease, echoing the spirit of farmhouse simplicity. Each figure feels as though it wandered out of a storybook pasture and paused here, content to rest among the blooms. Children approach them first, laughing at their wide eyes and rounded forms. They circle the flock as if expecting a soft bleat or the shuffle of hooves. Adults smile too, charmed by the play of imagination against the reality of steel and soil. These sheep remind them of the farmhouse truth, that beauty lies not in perfection but in care, in the thoughtful act of turning what was forgotten into something that feels alive again. As the afternoon wanes, the lawn glows with amber light, and the sheep seem to take on a deeper stillness. Their painted coats reflect the soft hues of sunset, their round shapes casting shadows that mingle with the flowers. In that golden hour, they appear almost pastoral, guardians of a quiet moment where time slows and the garden exhales. The rustic fence behind them frames the scene, making the backyard feel like a meadow tucked into a corner of the world. And within that frame, the sheep hold their place, not just as decoration, but as reminders of the joy of reinvention. They tell us that even junk can find a second life, that whimsy belongs as much to adults as to children, and that a garden thrives best when it carries both bloom and story. Here, on this simple lawn, farmhouse sheep crafted from tires prove that the smallest touches can carry the heart of the countryside into the backyard, making the space warmer, brighter, and endlessly inviting. In the middle of a small garden, far from any ocean shore, dolphins leap. Not of flesh or fin, but of rubber reborn, old tires reshaped, painted in bold strokes of ocean blue, their curves arched into the familiar grace of the sea's dancers. Against the green of the lawn, their forms shine like waves caught mid-motion, a piece of seascape wonder planted in the heart of the backyard. Around them, marigolds blaze their golden fires, asters scatter violet stars, and chrysanthemums open wide in burgundy and cream. Sedum autumn joy swells nearby, its rosy clusters softening the edges of the blue. The dolphins seem to rise straight from this tide of blooms, their painted bodies blending ocean and earth in a harmony both surprising and delightful. Children are the first to notice. Their laughter fills the garden as they pretend the dolphins swim through seas of flowers, chasing butterflies instead of fish. For them, the backyard becomes a secret aquarium, a stage for imagination where the border between land and water dissolves. Adults linger too, marveling at how something so simple, a discarded tire, could be reborn into such movement and joy. As afternoon fades, the sun strikes the painted blue, making the dolphins shimmer like waves under golden light. The rustic fence beyond catches their shadows, stretching them tall as if the sea itself had spilled into the garden. The air grows cooler, the flowers lean into evening, but the dolphins keep leaping, eternal in their play. There is a poetry to their presence. They remind us that gardens can be more than earth and bloom. They can be stories, places where memory and imagination swim freely. They prove that even junk, when touched by creativity, can leap higher than its origin. In the end, these dolphins bring not only color and shape but a spirit of joy. They carry the salt and spray of distant seas into a tiny yard, turning the everyday into something vast. And as night begins to settle, the garden feels larger, as though it holds an ocean within its borders, with dolphins forever dancing above the tide of flowers. At the edge of the garden, where chrysanthemums burst in bright crowns of yellow and red, a small gathering of gnomes has taken root. They are not carved from stone nor molded from clay, but built from old tires, stacked, painted, and given faces full of cheer. Upon their heads, real blossoms bloom, chrysanthemums nodding gently in the breeze, as if their hats had come alive with color. The gnomes stand between asters that scatter soft stars of violet and marigolds that glow like sparks of fire. Sedum autumn joy rises nearby, its clustered blooms lending a gentle blush, while anemones sway with pale petals that catch the light. Together, the flowers and the gnomes weave a scene that feels both playful and enchanted, as though the garden has opened a doorway into folklore. Children are the first to laugh, pointing at the gnomes' painted smiles and flower-topped hats. They weave stories of secret kingdoms where these figures come alive after dusk, wandering through the blossoms in search of adventure. Adults smile too, touched by the rustic charm, the thrift and imagination that can coax whimsy out of what was once forgotten. In these gnomes lies a lesson, that gardens need not be serious to be beautiful. They need only to carry a touch of wonder. As the day wanes, the chrysanthemums glow like lanterns above the gnomes' heads, their petals catching the last warm threads of light. The rustic fence beyond frames the scene, and the patio stones beneath their feet ground them in farmhouse simplicity. They seem both rooted and ready to wander, guardians of a garden that values joy as much as bloom. What gives them life is not just their painted faces, but their partnership with the flowers. The tires, sturdy and unyielding, provide form. The chrysanthemums, soft and fleeting, provide spirit. Together they remind us that beauty is often found in unlikely unions. And so, as night falls and the garden settles, the gnomes remain, silent, smiling, crowned with blooms, holding in their presence the heart of a garden where even the discarded can wear flowers and bring delight. At the entrance of a small cottage garden, where the path bends gently toward the house and flowers spill across its borders, a carriage waits. Not one drawn by horses nor polished with gilded wheels, but a carriage made from painted tires, upcycled, bright, and full of charm. Its rounded form is painted in soft pastels, rose, mint, and cream, each color brushed with care to echo the hues of the blooms that surround it. Chrysanthemums rise behind it in golden and burgundy tones, marigolds flicker like sparks at its base, and asters scatter their delicate stars to complete the picture. Sedum autumn joy leans in with clusters of dusky pink, while Japanese anemones soften the edges with pale petals. Together, the flowers seem to push the carriage forward, as if ready to carry the garden itself into a storybook. Children delight at the sight, climbing gently onto its sides, pretending to ride toward kingdoms hidden just beyond the picket fence. Adults smile too, struck by the whimsy of it, the farmhouse spirit that takes what is discarded and turns it into an invitation for joy. The carriage does not move, but in its stillness it carries imagination further than wheels ever could. As the light shifts into evening, the painted surfaces glow softly, the pastel colors catching the last warmth of the sun. The rustic pergola nearby drapes its shadow, framing the carriage like a stage prop in a play about gardens, thrift, and wonder. The air grows cooler, scented with chrysanthemums, and the scene settles into a quiet radiance. There is something both humble and magical in this creation. It is humble because it is built from what was once junk, old tires that no one needed. It is magical because it does not try to hide that truth, but transforms it, letting the garden itself finish the story with bloom and color. Here, in the front yard, the carriage becomes more than decoration. It becomes a threshold, a reminder that even the smallest spaces can carry the weight of imagination. And so it waits, painted and still, carrying not people but dreams, ready to take anyone who looks upon it on a journey deeper into the beauty of the garden. Along the fence where vines stretch lazily upward and flowers lean toward the light, a quiet sky has been painted into place. Suns and moons, shaped from old tires and brushed with strokes of gold and silver, shine against the wood. They do not rise or set, yet they bring a rhythm to the garden, a reminder of day and night captured in a single glance. The suns glow warmly in hues of amber and ochre, their painted rays stretching outward in playful patterns. The moons, curved and serene, shimmer in silvery tones that soften the fence line. Around their bases, marigolds burn with their fiery petals, asters sprinkle their purple stars, and chrysanthemums add depth with shades of cream and burgundy. Sedum autumn joy gathers in clusters, softening the ground beneath the celestial forms, while Japanese anemones sway as if moved by tides unseen. Children look up at them with wide eyes, imagining a garden that never sleeps, a place where stars rest on fences and moons whisper to marigolds. Adults pause too, struck by the way something so ordinary, tires left behind, could be reborn into symbols of timeless beauty. These suns and moons speak not only of thrift but of imagination, of the human desire to bring the heavens close to the earth. As evening approaches, the suns catch the last amber glow of daylight, while the moons take on the hush of twilight. Shadows from the fence stretch long, and the celestial tire art seems to hum with quiet energy, as if reminding the flowers to rest while holding a lantern for the night. There is a poetry in their presence. They turn the fence from a mere boundary into a gallery, transforming wood and wire into a canvas for dream and memory. The rustic garden feels both grounded and lifted, rooted in soil yet touched by sky. Here, among the blooms, the suns and moons hold their place. They do not move, yet they guide the garden gently, reminding all who pass that beauty can be crafted from what was once forgotten, and that even a tiny yard can carry the light of both day and night. In the heart of a garden where flowers spill their colors without restraint, a peacock stands. Its body is not made of feathers, but of tires once forgotten, cut, shaped, and painted into arcs of blue and emerald. From its form rises a tail, not of quills but of blooms, asters in violet and white, marigolds in bursts of orange, chrysanthemums heavy with autumn's glow. Together, they unfurl in a fan of living color, as if the bird had chosen the garden itself to be its plumage. The peacock does not move, yet it commands the space. Children pause in wonder, circling the sculpture as though it might suddenly strut across the lawn. Adults linger too, struck by the unlikely beauty of its creation, junk reborn into grandeur, simplicity transformed into spectacle. The rustic fence behind frames it like a stage, while sedum autumn joy gathers at its base, softening its edges with gentle clusters of rose. When the afternoon light falls low, the painted blues shimmer faintly, echoing the sheen of real feathers. The flowers in its tail catch the glow, each petal becoming a spark in a radiant mosaic. It is a scene both grounded and fantastic, where thrift and imagination dance hand in hand. The peacock holds more than beauty, it holds story. It tells of hands willing to see potential where others see waste, of a garden that invites not only growth but transformation. Here, the fence is no longer a boundary but a backdrop, the patio no longer a plain corner but a stage for wonder. As dusk settles, the peacock stands regal, its tail feathers glowing faintly against the dimming sky. It reminds the onlooker that elegance need not be rare nor costly, that sometimes the grandest display is born from the humblest of beginnings. And so, this peacock remains, not just decoration, but a symbol of renewal, of whimsy, of the art of making gardens as much about imagination as about bloom. On the patio where flowers tumble from their pots and the air is softened by the scent of marigolds, a pair of flamingos stands watch. They are not feathered wanderers of distant wetlands, but creations shaped from tires, cut, painted, and bent into graceful forms of pink. Their long necks arch with quiet elegance, their curved bodies resting firmly on patio pots overflowing with blooms. The pots themselves are alive with color. Marigolds spill golden fire, asters lift violet stars, and chrysanthemums anchor the scene with their autumn richness. Around their bases, sedum autumn joy leans in clusters, its hues of rose and green softening the bright display. Together, the flowers and flamingos create a vignette that feels both playful and refined, a touch of whimsy balanced by the dignity of posture. Children stop to point, their laughter rising as they imagine the flamingos stepping down to wade through the garden. Adults pause too, charmed by the way something so ordinary, junk tires and clay pots, has been coaxed into beauty. These flamingos seem less like decor and more like characters, companions who lend a sense of story to the space. As the afternoon sun leans lower, the painted pink gleams softly, catching the light with a warmth that feels almost alive. Shadows from the rustic fence stretch across the patio, while the flamingos stand firm, tall, and unbothered. The pergola nearby frames them in shabby chic charm, as though they belong not only to the patio but to some quiet dream of summer evenings and soft gatherings. There is a kind of joy here, the joy of transformation, of seeing the discarded rise into elegance. The flamingos carry with them the memory of roads once traveled, but now they stand as art, as guardians of blooms, as emblems of imagination. They remind us that gardens are not only for planting but for playing, for telling stories in color and form. And so, as dusk deepens and the flowers close slightly in the cool air, the flamingos remain, silent, steadfast, a pair of pink sentinels watching over the patio pots. They do not move, yet they bring life, turning an ordinary corner into a place of delight, where even junk can become a vision of grace.